He said it was just an application, a loan for his mother's dream kitchen. But the bank statement revealed the terrifying truth. He'd already stolen our entire future. The silence in the car wasn't just an absence of noise. It was a living, breathing thing, thick and suffocating. It sat in the space between me and my husband, Mark, pressing down on my chest. Every bump in the road felt like a jolt to my nervous system. I stared out the passenger window, watching the streetlights smear into long ribbons of orange and white. But all I could see was the look on my mother-in-law Carol's face an hour ago. That carefully crafted expression of hopeful disappointment, the one she'd perfected over years of gentle manipulation. It had all started so innocently, over a Sunday roast at her house. The chicken was perfect, the potatoes crispy, and the conversation was light. Carol has a way of making you feel comfortable right before she drops a bomb. She waited until we were sipping our coffee, lulled into a post-dinner contentment. "You know," she'd begun, sighing as she looked around her kitchen, "this old room has served me well, but my goodness, it's falling apart." I glanced around. The kitchen was dated, sure. The linoleum was a bit curled at the edges, and the cabinets were a shade of avocado green that had gone out of style 30 years ago. But falling apart was a dramatic overstatement. It was clean, functional, and honestly bigger than the kitchen in our two-bedroom apartment. Mark, ever the devoted son, immediately jumped in. "What are you thinking, Mom? Maybe some new countertops? A coat of paint?" A slow, beatific smile spread across Carol's face. She reached over and patted his hand. "Oh, you're so sweet to even think of it. I was just dreaming, really." She then produced a magazine clipping from the pocket of her cardigan, smoothing it out on the table like it was a sacred text. It was a picture of a sprawling, Tuscan-inspired kitchen. We're talking granite countertops, a farmhouse sink, a massive island with a built-in wine fridge, and custom distressed wood cabinetry. My heart sank into my stomach. I knew what was coming. Mark's eyes went wide with admiration. "Wow, Mom, that's beautiful." "Isn't it?" she breathed. "I got a contractor to give me a quote. Just for fun, you know." She paused for dramatic effect. "He said he could do the whole thing for $30,000. $30,000. The number echoed in my head, a deafening clang that drowned out the rest of her words. $30,000 was almost half of our entire house deposit, the deposit we had spent 5 years meticulously saving for. 5 years of packed lunches instead of buying out, of staycations instead of trips abroad, of driving our 10-year-old car instead of upgrading. Every single dollar was accounted for, earmarked for a future that we had both agreed on. A future with a backyard for a dog and a spare room for the baby we hoped to have one day. Mark was still looking at the picture, a dreamy look on his face. He'd always had a blind spot when it came to his mother. He saw a sweet, aging woman who deserved the world. I saw a woman who had never learned to live within her means, and who saw her son's income as an extension of her own. "The thing is," Carol continued, her voice taking on a slightly wobbly, pathetic tone, "the bank won't give me a loan, not with my little pension. They just don't see the value." She finally turned her gaze to me, her eyes glistening. "I was hoping. Maybe you two could help me out. You're so good with money, Sarah. It would just be a loan, of course. I'd pay you back every penny." I felt Mark's knee press against mine under the table, a silent plea. I knew what he was thinking. Just say yes. Don't make a scene. But $30,000 wasn't a scene. It was a torpedo aimed directly at the hull of our future. I took a steadying breath and gave her a polite, firm smile. "Carol, That's a beautiful kitchen. It truly is. But I'm afraid that's not something we can do right now. We have all of our savings tied up in our house fund. We just can't touch it." The light in Carol's eyes flickered and died. Mark flinched as if I'd slapped him. The rest of the evening was excruciatingly awkward. And now, in the car, the silence had finally broken its banks. "I can't believe you," Mark said, his voice low and tight with fury. He wasn't looking at me, just staring straight ahead at the road. "You couldn't have been more cold if you'd tried." "Mark, be realistic," I pleaded. $30,000 for a cosmetic renovation? We don't have that kind of money to just loan out, you know that. "It's my mother, Sarah," he exploded, slamming his hand against the steering wheel. The car swerved slightly. "She's not asking for a sports car. She wants a nice kitchen to cook in for the rest of her life. Is that too much to ask, after everything she's done for me?" "What she's done for you doesn't mean we have to sacrifice our entire future, the future we planned together." "It's always about the plan with you, isn't it? The budget, the 5-year goal, the spreadsheets. Sometimes life is about family, about helping the people you love." "Helping is one thing, Mark, but bankrupting ourselves for a wine fridge is another." We pulled into our apartment complex, the tires screeching in the silence of the night. He killed the engine and we sat there, breathing heavily in the dark. I thought we had reached the peak of the argument. I was wrong. Mark turned to me, his face a mask of anger I had never seen before. "You know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you say." A cold dread trickled down my spine. "What do you mean it doesn't matter?" He looked at me, and for the first time I saw a stranger where my husband used to be. A cold, determined stranger. "I mean," he said slowly, each word a perfectly polished stone of betrayal, "that I already went to the bank with her this afternoon. I told her we would do it. I co-signed the loan application." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All the air was sucked out of the car, leaving a vacuum where my trust in my husband used to be. "You... what?" I whispered, the sound barely audible. "The application," he repeated, refusing to meet my eyes. He was staring at the dashboard as if the glowing numbers held some profound truth. "It's just an application. It probably won't even be approved. But I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there and watch you crush her." "Crush her?" My voice cracked, then rose with a hysterical edge. "You think telling your mother we can't afford to give her $30,000 is crushing her? What do you think you just did to me, Mark? To us? You went behind my back and made a massive financial decision without me. A decision that directly affects the one goal we've been working towards our entire marriage." I fumbled with the door handle, my hands shaking so violently I could barely operate it. I stumbled out of the car and into the cool night air, gulping it down as if I'd been holding my breath for an hour. I heard his door slam and his footsteps behind me as I marched towards our apartment building. "Sarah, wait, just listen," he called out, catching up to me and grabbing my arm. I spun around, yanking my arm away. "No, you listen. I am the one who manages our finances. I am the one who built the spreadsheets and set up the automatic transfers. I am the one who knows our credit scores by heart and knows that a hard inquiry for a $30,000 personal loan is going to look fantastic when we go to apply for a mortgage in 6 months. Did you even think about that?" His face hardened. "It's my money too, Sarah. I work for it." "It's our money," I shrieked, my voice echoing in the empty parking garage. "It belongs to our future, not to your mother's Tuscan fantasy. You didn't just co-sign a loan, you co-signed away our dream home." We rode the elevator up in stony silence. The moment we were inside our apartment, the argument reignited, but this time it was different. It was colder, sharper. The raw anger had been replaced by the chilling reality of his betrayal. He tried to defend himself, talking about how his mom had cried to him on the phone last week, how she felt like her house was the only thing she had left since his dad passed, how it was falling into disrepair and making her depressed. It was a perfectly woven narrative of guilt and obligation, and he had swallowed it whole. "So you lied to me," I said, my voice flat. "This wasn't some spontaneous idea over dinner. You and she have been planning this." He had the decency to look away. "I was going to tell you, I just needed to find the right time." "The right time?" I laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. Was it going to be before or after the bank called to tell us our mortgage application was denied? Was it going to be before or after the first payment on a loan I never even agreed to was due? He threw his hands up in exasperation. "I'll make the payments myself. I'll get a second job. It won't affect our savings." I just stared at him. The sheer naivety, the complete lack of understanding of how shared finances and credit worked was staggering. Or maybe it wasn't naivety. Maybe he just didn't care. "I need to be alone," I said, my words like ice chips. "Just go take a shower. Go to the other room. I can't even look at you right now." He hesitated for a moment, then turned and walked down the hall towards the bedroom, closing the door behind him with a soft click. The sound of his finality settled over me. I was alone in the living room, the life we had so carefully built crumbling around me. My mind was racing, trying to assess the damage. An application. He said it was just an application. But his words, "I'll make the payments myself," kept ringing in my ears, as if it were already a done deal. A knot of pure dread tightened in my stomach. I walked over to the small desk in the corner of our living room and opened my laptop. My fingers trembled as I typed in the web address for our bank. I navigated to our joint savings account, the one we nicknamed the Dream Fund. The account I checked every week, watching the balance grow with a sense of pride and shared purpose. I entered my password and held my breath as the page loaded. The numbers resolved on the screen. I blinked, sure that I was reading it wrong. My heart started hammering against my ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. The balance wasn't what it was supposed to be. It wasn't even close. It was exactly $30,000 short. My eyes darted down to the transaction history, scanning the familiar lines of interest payments and automatic deposits. And then I saw it, a single line item from earlier that afternoon. Wire transfer to Carol Jensen. He hadn't just co-signed a loan application. He hadn't waited for an approval. He had just taken our money. He had logged into our shared dream and transferred a third of it away without a second thought. The screen glowed in the dark room, the stark white numbers a testament to the lie I was now living. $30,000 gone. It wasn't just the money. It was the 5 years of sacrifice, the hundreds of tiny no's we had said to ourselves so we could say one big yes to our future. And Mark had erased it all with a few clicks. He hadn't co-signed a loan. He had committed grand larceny against our marriage. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, glacial calm washed over me. The anger was still there, a hot core deep inside, but it was encased in a thick layer of ice. I stood up from the desk, walked into our bedroom, and opened the closet. Mark was in the shower, the sound of the water a dull roar from the ensuite bathroom. I pulled out a suitcase. Methodically, I began to pack. T-shirts, jeans, my work clothes for the next few days. I didn't take everything, just enough. Then I went back to the living room and grabbed my laptop bag. I placed my wedding and engagement rings on the kitchen counter, right next to the car keys he had tossed there. They looked small and insignificant under the harsh fluorescent light. I wrote a short, simple note. The dream is over. I'll be in touch through my lawyer. Then I walked out of the apartment, closing the door quietly behind me, not looking back at the life that had been stolen from me. I spent the next 2 days at my sister's place, operating on autopilot. I found a lawyer who specialized in divorce and finance. She was sharp, empathetic, and utterly appalled by what Mark had done. She explained that because he had transferred the money from a joint account without my consent for a non-marital purpose, it was considered a dissipation of assets. I had a very strong case to get it back. The word divorce felt like a foreign object in my mouth, but with every passing hour, it became more familiar, more necessary. My phone blew up with calls and texts from Mark. At first, they were furious, demanding to know where I was. Then they became desperate, pleading. Finally, they were filled with frantic apologies. I was wrong, Sarah. I was so stupid. I'll get the money back from her. Please, just come home. But the trust was gone, shattered into a million pieces. How could I ever trust him not to choose his mother's wants over our needs again? The call I had been dreading finally came a week later. It was Carol. Her voice was syrupy sweet. Sarah, dear, Mark is just beside himself. I think you're being a little dramatic, don't you? It was just a little loan to help his poor old mother. I've already paid the deposit to the contractor, so the work is starting next week. The glacial calm returned. Carol, I said, my voice steady and clear. That money was not a loan. It was stolen from a joint account without my permission. My lawyer has already sent a letter to you and Mark demanding the immediate return of the $30,000. If it is not returned within 5 business days, we will be pursuing legal action against you both for fraudulent conveyance. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Fraudulent what? Legal action? Against me? But Mark said it was fine. He gave it to me. Mark did not have the authority to give you our joint savings, Carol. He stole it, and you accepted it. That makes you complicit. The choice is yours. Return the money or we can discuss it in front of a judge. I hung up before she could respond. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Carol, faced with the actual legal consequences of her little dream, crumbled. She called Mark, screaming that I was trying to sue her and put her in jail. Suddenly, the Tuscan kitchen wasn't so important. The full $30,000 was wired back into my new personal bank account 2 days later. Mark showed up at my sister's apartment that evening, looking haggard and broken. He had the divorce papers I'd had served to him in his hand. She gave it back, he said, his voice hoarse. The money is back. Can't we fix this now? I'll go to counseling. We can rebuild. I looked at the man I had loved, the man I had planned a life with, and I felt nothing but a profound sense of sorrow. You don't get it, do you? I said softly. This was never just about the money. It was about the trust. It was about the partnership. You made a choice, Mark. You chose your mother's temporary happiness over our entire future. You looked at the life we were building, and you decided her new cabinets were more important. I can't build a life with someone who would do that. I can't ever trust you again. We finalized the divorce 6 months later. It was surprisingly clean. He didn't fight me on anything. He moved back in with his mother for a while, and I heard through a mutual friend that her kitchen remains a lovely shade of avocado green. I, on the other hand, took the money. Our money, my money now, and I bought myself a small house. It's not the big family home we had planned, but it's mine. It has a small backyard just big enough for the rescue dog I adopted last month. Sometimes, when I'm sitting in my own kitchen, making coffee, I look around at the simple, clean countertops and the perfectly functional, paid-for cabinets, and I smile. It's not a Tuscan fantasy, but it's real, and it was a dream I was finally able to build all on my own.